Hello, I'm Brian Karras, Technical Director of Graphics here at Epic Games.
Hi, I'm Jerome Plateau, Art Director of the Special Project.
A few years ago, we got together as a team and brainstormed where we thought we could push forward the state-of-the-art in real-time graphics. There were two key areas that stood out. The first, dynamic global illumination. Beautiful bounce lighting instantaneously.
I don't have to be constrained to do a game where the world has to be static, and I'm able to iterate a lot faster.
And we call this new system Lumen. And we're about to show you what it is capable of. But first, there was another area that we thought we could push forward. Truly virtualized geometry. The artist wouldn't have to be concerned over poly counts, draw calls, or memory. We could directly use film quality assets and bring them straight into the engine.
And that's a big deal for artists. I just want to be able to import my ZBrush model, my photogrammetry scan, my CAD data without wasting any time optimizing, creating LODs, or even lowering the quality to make it hit frame rate.
In the end, that's what it's all about. Art that just works. And we call this new technology Nanite. Here is the future of Unreal Engine running live on a PlayStation 5.
Awesome, let's take a look at it.
This has to be the right way.
Before we continue, let's stop a moment and take a look at some of the key features of this demo. Much of what you see was built with Quixel Megascan assets, but instead of using the game versions, we used the cinematic versions, which would typically only be used in film. There are around 1 million triangles each, and thanks to virtual texturing, they all use 8K textures as well. Nanite can render an insane number of triangles very quickly. There are over 1 billion triangles of source geometry in each frame that Nanite crunches down losslessly to around 20 million drawn triangles. What does that many triangles look like? This isn't noise. These are the triangles, each a different color. Most are so small that they look like noise. Nanite achieves detail down to the pixel, which means triangles are often the size of pixels. This amount of geometric detail requires shadows to be pixel accurate as well, and Nanite can do that too. Speaking of lighting, all of the lighting in this demo is completely dynamic, with the power of Lumen that even includes multi-bounce global illumination. No light maps, no baking here. Without GI, all of that beautiful lighting is gone. With Lumen enabled, we can move the light and the bounce changes instantly. Okay, let's keep going. We've made some great additions to our audio system as well. Convolution Reverb allows us to measure reverberation characteristics of real spaces, like actual caves that we sampled, and reproduce them in virtual spaces. Sound field rendering allows us to record and playback spatialized audio. All of this adds up to a more immersive experience. This swarm of bats was created with our Niagara effects system. Particles in Niagara can now talk to one another and understand their environment like never before. We've also added a ton of new functionality to run fluid simulations like you see in the water below. The demo runs on our chaos physics system. Here we are using it to accurately simulate the rigid bodies of the falling rocks and the cloth of her scarf. Now that the environment is so complex, we've needed to greatly improve our animation systems to adapt. We've added predictive foot placement and motion warping, which dynamically modifies IK and body position to look more natural. For the character to more realistically interact with the environment, we've added the ability to trigger seamless contextual animation events, like her hand on the door.
Looks promising.
Dynamic GI is amazing, not just for speeding up iteration, but also for its impact on gameplay.
Nice.
Any light source can move while still having beautiful bounce lighting. Dynamic illumination means specular as well, which you can see on all the metal surfaces. You can even see the Niagara-powered bugs reacting to the light. Lumen not only reacts to moving light sources, but also changes in geometry. Remember we mentioned high poly assets? This statue was imported directly from ZBrush and is more than 33 million triangles. No baking of normal maps, no authored LODs. And we can do more than a single statue. There are nearly 500 of that exact statue at the same detail level placed in this room, for a total of over 16 billion triangles from statues alone. Over this entire demo, there are hundreds of billions of triangles. So with Nanite, you have limitless geometry, and with Lumen, you have fully dynamic lighting and global illumination, all running on a PlayStation 5.
There's not much time left.
And this doesn't need to be constrained to small rooms. It can stretch all the way to the horizon.
The portal, it's open. Don't fail me now. Time to see what's next.
There you go. The Unreal Engine 5 is real, and that was the first real-time footage of something running on the PlayStation 5 as well. Such an amazing day, I think, for gamers to get a glimpse at where games are going next. And now it's my honor to be joined by three guys from Epic to talk a little bit about today's announcement. Of course, we've got Tim Sweeney, Kim LeBerry, and Nick Penwarden. Guys, thanks for joining me here virtually. This is a really big and exciting day. I mean, I think I just was so blown away when I saw this footage about what UE5 can do. And Tim, this is, I know, a special moment for you to have, put a 5 on this Unreal Engine. I remember the first time you showed me the original Unreal Engine. I think it was like 1996 at E3 at a Marriott Marina Del Rey. And I was looking back last night at like the old Next Generation magazine cover with like can you believe this is what a PC screenshot of the original Unreal Engine, how far we've come. Tell me, I mean, this is a big moment for Epic, but what does this mean to sort of the company right now to be able to, debut the first PlayStation 5 footage, but also, introduce, a new numbered version of Unreal?
Well, this really is a generational leap or more in technological capabilities. And the hardware that Sony is launching is absolutely phenomenal. Not only an unprecedented amount of graphics power, but also a completely new storage architecture that blows past architectures out of the water, and it's far ahead of even the state of the art and the highest end PCs you can buy. And so with Unreal Engine 5, we set out to build a new generation of technology that empowers creators to create photorealistic scenes that are indistinguishable from reality, and to do so with a very high degree of productivity, right? I mean, there are two problems in game development, right? One is the features needed to achieve complete realism. But the other big problem is just the cost and time it takes for an artist to create a major new piece of content for a next generation game. And so Unreal Engine 5 attacks both of those problems. We have the Nanite system for virtual geometry, enabling sub-pixel geometry, which is imperceptibly different from the full high-quality assets, so the movie-quality assets that were originally scanned. Also, the Lumen, the real-time global illumination system, not only to bring unprecedented quality and lighting to the environments, but also to free artists from having to worry about the details of lighting their levels, and make all of these trade-offs in static lighting versus dynamic lighting. And so we're really trying to empower developers here, and to enable developers to create a new generation of experiences that are both unbelievably realistic, but also economical and practical for them to create without having to have a 1,000-person team.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that footage, in 4K, I mean, just the level of detail is absolutely stunning. Kim, maybe you could break down a little bit of this, sort of visually, what's happening that makes it look so incredible? Because I know you've got a couple of new systems that you're really proud of, and maybe talk about Nanite and what that is and how it works and how it's going to kind of shape games moving forward.
Okay, so Nanite is a new geometry system for Unreal Engine that lets us get down to almost sub-pixel levels of detail on the screen. It's possible because we have a new generation of hardware that really allows us to put loads and loads of triangles at the screen. And we thought that we'd come up with a new technique that allowed us to be able to create content in a similar way to the way that they do on movies today. So in fact, when you look at that demo, all them assets, Nana is basically ingesting all the movie quality assets from Quixel to make that scene. And the artist doesn't even have to think about it. They can move rocks and mountains and statues wherever they want in the scene and not have to worry about triangle costs anymore. Lumen, the global illumination system that Tim mentioned, that just produces incredibly realistic and accurate bounce lighting. So wherever you place a light in the scene, its effect on the whole world is seen instantly by just moving things around. It's amazing.
Yeah, when I saw that demo, I was just so blown away by the visual fidelity, and also I think how much felt, at least to me as an end user, how much felt that so much of the environment was streaming in real time in so much detail, especially that sequence where she's flying through the environment. Mark Cerny has talked a lot about PlayStation 5 and the incredible bandwidth it's going to have to move data from the SSD right onto screen. Nick, can you maybe talk a bit about how that's sort of manifesting itself in this demo? I assume some of those improvements in PS5 are enabling types of things that just weren't possible in previous generations.
Yeah, so Nanite enabled the artist to build a scene with geometric complexity that would have been impossible before. There are tens of billions of triangles in that scene, and we simply couldn't have them all in memory at once. And so what we end up needing to do is streaming in triangles as the camera is moving throughout the environment. And the I/O capabilities of PlayStation 5 are one of the key hardware features that enable us to achieve that level of realism.
Yeah, no, it's stunning to see that, and I think also the global illumination. I think people have heard that concept before, but now really manifesting sort of in real time in that environment with the flashlight or some of the other lighting scenes. Can you guys maybe break down sort of on the from the gamer perspective, like how games are going to change because of the full global illumination?
Well, first of all, this enables a much wider variety of games to have very realistic responses to light. Everything from from large-scale open-world types of games, with day-night cycles, being seamless transitions from indoor to outdoor. It's it makes lighting one of the things that the developers don't have to worry about. And it's a freeing technology. Not only does it mean more real-time lighting in games, but it also means there's a large set of problems that were very tricky in the previous generation that developers just don't need to worry about. And so I think you're going to see a much wider variety of types of games, taking advantage of Lumen and taking advantage of Nanite. And one of the core elements of every new generation transition is new hardware capabilities with an order of magnitude improvement over previous generations enable entirely new types of games to develop. The Battle Royale genre didn't even take off until the current generation, where you finally had enough computing and graphics power to enable a 100-player game, with very, very high fidelity encounters. This new generation of technology that we're building with Unreal Engine 5 and that Sony's empowering with PlayStation 5 will enable entirely new types of game experiences that we can't even anticipate yet.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk over the past couple of weeks about the next generation and kind of will the leap be as great as previous generations? What are the types of things we're going to see? I think this demo, at least to me, is the first kind of real-time example of something that really grabs me. And I just wanted to confirm, like, what we're seeing there, that's all, like, you can actually play that with a controller? Like, that's not kind of frame dumped or anything? That's actually playable?
It's a fully playable demo, and
Wow.
We plugged in a recorder into the back of a PlayStation 5 dev kit and recorded the signal that came out over HDMI. So it's a totally live demo, and it's replayable, and it's a little bit different every time you play it.
Wow. No, because I mean that flight sequence, everything. That's what's so exciting to me is like this is real time footage. So what do you guys think? I mean, when people say like what is the leap of this generation going to be to sort of previous generations from like PlayStation 3 to 4 and whatnot? Is it any different this time? Is it going to be greater, less, or we don't know yet?
I think the sense of immersion, one of the great things about playing games is you can transport it to places that you could never go in the normal world. This level of lighting and detail really gets you to a point where you're feeling like you're inside a movie set. Things are so realistic. And it's gonna aid the storytelling. I think that the sense of immersion, the feeling a player gets from actually visiting a space will be much deeper than you've ever seen before.
And the ability of the hardware and the engine to stream in massive amounts of content as you're going through a huge environment, I think that's going to have a much bigger impact on gaming than people are expecting right now. Until this next generation of hardware, previous generation console games had to be built to load data off of a spinning mechanical device, right? That has its roots in the 1950s, and now. Sony's storage system is absolutely world class. Not only the best in class in console, but also the best on any platform, better than high-end PC. I think this is going to enable the types of immersion that we only could have dreamed of in the past. The world of loading screens is over, and the days of pop-in and geometry popping up as you're going through these game environments are ended, and the resulting effect is the ability to build games that are fully immersive from start to finish over hundreds of hours of gameplay, if that's your game.
Yeah, no, incredible what I think this is going to enable. We've talked a lot about PS5. We know obviously Unreal Engine runs kind of across all platforms, including mobile and PC and Xbox, of course. What's your take on like what you're showing here? How is that going to scale to to other systems? Like this demo we're seeing, is that will that run on the Xbox Series X? Will it run on PC? How will it be different? Can you guys give us some context on that?
Well, I mean, Unreal Engine 5 is going to run across all of our supported platforms, next generation console, current generation consoles, as well as mobile devices. One of the key features that we've been working on is being able to build content once and deploy it across devices. So on higher end hardware where we can support Nanite directly, we'll be able to render scenes at the fidelity that that you just saw, like on PlayStation 5. For, say, an Android or iOS mobile device, what we will be able to do is have tools that help to scale that content down so that you'll be able to take the game that you built at the highest fidelity level for console and bring it to all other devices.
Tim, do you have a sense between like sort of all the, like Xbox, PlayStation, all these other systems, like sort of, they've made somewhat different choices, also some similar ones, obviously with SSDs in both. Do you have a sense of how they're going to sort of compare in terms of power, or, how you look at sort of like the overall landscape?
Well, we love all of our babies, and we can't make comparisons or pick favorites. But the Nanite technology we showed here is going to run across all next generation consoles and high-end PC. And most importantly, this is what's possible in the absolute best hardware that's going to exist at the end of the year. But these experiences you build, we will help developers scale down to every device that exists in the world. And we really hope to empower all developers to do what we've done with Fortnite in this generation, which is build an absolutely no sacrifices high-end console game, and then bring it to every device, including scaling it down to iOS and Android devices from years ago, so that we can reach a much larger audience of gamers than just the hardcore some 200 million console players in the world.
So Kim, I know a lot of gamers around the world watched that footage and said, wow, I want to play that, but I'm sure they're also trying to kind of extrapolate out of that, since it's, this is not a game, it's a demo, how their games are going to feel different in the next generation. And one of the things that I really took away from it was that flight sequence at the end, which was just incredible, and with, the sort of the rubble coming down and things moving. Could you maybe talk about sort of how the game experience might change with UE5? Sure, it's going to look, visually more beautiful, but how is it going to play different?
So traditionally on this current generation, if you wanted to make a photorealistic environment, the way that people do that is they bake lighting into the environment. The problem with that means the environment is not dynamic. You can't move things around. You can't incorporate user-generated content because you don't know what it is prior to shipping your game. But with this technology, with the Lumen technology and Nanite, it means that worlds can be super rich and super dynamic. So not just destructible components, but mutating components and things that change beyond the release of the game. Every day, an environment could have grown and changed, and that can all be calculated live.
And does that extend to, like, I assume like destructible environments and whatnot, and allowing people to sort of, really like just, that sequence in the flight where you sort of, saw the sort of tower crash down or whatever, that felt to me, I just hadn't seen that level of detail in a game like that. And some games like Uncharted or whatever sometimes have big destruction moments, but it felt like that was so detailed and so realistic. Is that partially because you can now move the environment more in real time?
Yes, and even effects like when we open that big dome where all the statues are, the light just floods in and bounces all over the place. You really, the way you would have had to do that in the past is you would have to cheat. And now it can be fully dynamic. You can blow a hole in the sky and the light will come through, and even choose randomly colored lights. If you put them into the scene as a player, then they're going to have an effect on the whole world and it'll still look realistic.
So in the past, you could get that effect, but it would have to be sort of pre-calculated, I guess? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, exactly. And even if you want to, like if you're saying you're in a dungeon and you place a light, you see you've got a candle that you happen to have in the game and you place it, that will bounce around corners. So you can explore with limited light sources, and the old-fashioned gag of having a flashlight beam isn't what you need anymore. You can actually use light in really interesting ways.
Yeah, and even beyond games, Unreal Engine has been applied to so many amazing aspects of entertainment. Of course, I think everyone knows The Mandalorian, how that used Unreal Engine, and there's the Weather Channel. There's so many other uses of UE. Can you guys talk about how sort of UE5 is going to kind of tie into those experiences? And I think I assume you see this convergence of kind of everything coming together through an engine like Unreal in terms of just realizing entertainment. How will UE5 sort of, be used in those fields, or how will that change the pipeline for non-game experiences too?
So one of the great things about Nanite is that it finally allows content creators of all kinds to be able to use movie quality assets. So there really won't be a difference. If you're building an environment for a film, versus a video game, or you're making an IP that's transmedia, you can build things the same way now. And that was honestly, we had so much exposure to film customers over the last few years using our engine that we really wanted to remove the barrier for them and for all game makers. Right now, you pick a high resolution asset you want, you load it in, you don't have to think about making levels of detail or normal maps or any of the usual stuff that goes with making game content. It's a pretty freeing experience for anybody trying to tell a story or to make an experience.
That's amazing. So, in the eyes of a consumer, like you'll see an asset that's in, a movie, and that they literally can drag that over to the game now. Whereas I guess in the past they would have to sort of, reduce down the polygons and kind of scale it down for a game engine.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, Quixel, that's also part of Epic. Their assets, they come when you take an asset from the Quixel store. There is a movie quality version that would be used in movies. I guess they were involved a lot in the Jungle Book movie a few years ago, and many movies today use Quixel assets. And they also have versions of them assets that are suitable for games. Now, you don't have to have that distinction. Nanite will just take the movie asset and do the right things with it.
One of the things I know when you guys moved to UE4, a lot of people, were worried about, it's breaking some of the pipeline of things that people had done previously. And it sounds like with this engine, you're saying it's going to be kind of a pretty seamless transition to UE5, right? That's important for you, sort of have the forwards compatibility?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to support developers bringing their games from UE4 to UE5. And in fact, we will be doing that ourselves with Fortnite. So we will be shipping Fortnite on next generation console on UE4. And then next year, we will be bringing Fortnite to UE5 as well. So we'll be testing out that experience of bringing a game along from UE4 to UE5 and making sure the transition is manageable.
Wow. Yeah. Fortnite obviously is such a phenomenon, as you mentioned earlier, Tim, with, battle royales. But also I feel like, Fortnite has turned into, really kind of this metaverse-like platform where we're seeing kind of different experiences powered by Unreal. And I was wondering if you guys could talk a bit about that, because I look at, the Travis Scott concert and I see that as an amazing experience, but it sort of was an interactive music video in a way. And then, you watch the YouTube video for his new song, it's actually, just what was in Unreal. How do you see all those sort of worlds of entertainment combining, Tim, longer term? And obviously, based on what Kim was saying, it's now going to be even easier, I guess, for the assets to move. But from an experience standpoint, do you see kind of a blending of games with more traditional entertainment powered by Unreal?
Yeah, absolutely. All of these worlds are colliding right now in real time. We're seeing the sort of film production that's being done on The Mandalorian and other projects all around Hollywood, film and television. Being able to move directly to games in the future. Right now we've brought Marvel content into Fortnite and Star Wars content into Fortnite, and each of those processes started with rebuilding their movie quality assets for real time, using our tools. But in the future, this is going to be an exercise to build every asset exactly once and then deploy it everywhere. And the future isn't just going to be about Unreal Engine serving a bunch of separate markets. We're helping architects visualize their creations now, and that's awesome. We're helping film and television makers, virtually produce their work in real time, with actors in front of and actresses in front of cameras and big LED screens instead of green screens, and it's making the production process much more efficient, real time, and higher quality. But in the future, all of these assets are going to come together, and Epic's not going to just play a role in supplying creation software to all of these different industries. We're going to help everybody reach consumers with real-time 3D content. When General Motors released their Corvette car configurator for the 2020 Corvette, it was powered by Unreal. It was running in the cloud, and you could go there and you could configure your car right then. But that was disconnected from the rest of the gaming world. The next step with all of those types of experiences is to enable them to author that content for all their internal work, whether you're designing a home for a customer as an architect, or you're designing a car, or you're building a television series. We want the next generation of these experiences to be bringing all of those assets directly to gamers in a fun way, deploying them into Fortnite and every other Unreal Engine license use games, being able to reach a vast consumer audience that way, right? It's like it's like the transition that the world went through in the early days of the internet, and then social media. For a while it was just companies talking to customers one-on-one, and now you have the ability to reach customers directly through your Facebook page or your Twitter page, your Twitter account, or anything like that. But the next generation of these experiences is not just text and video. It's real-time 3D. It's a social experience where players are together with all of their friends and experiencing all of these companies' content together in real time. And it's a world that's not going to be powered by advertisements that pop up and annoy you. It's a world that's going to be powered by awesome content that these companies make available to power your entertainment experiences. And we're blazing this path to some extent with Fortnite, but there will be a lot of other games heading in this direction, a lot of them powered by Unreal Engine. And I think this is the next step in the entire digital content industry, not just gaming, but the whole thing.
I couldn't agree more. It's so exciting to feel that games are going to be at the center of this. But as you said, I think, this, like those shared experiences that you're having in Fortnite, even, a concert experience, there's no gunplay or combat involved. It's just a shared kind of experience, which is so compelling. And as you said, powered by Unreal. And then when you think of, as you said, those movie assets and all the other assets coming together in a world, it's really exciting. One thing I wanted to ask you about was the content creation path, because we've seen a lot, especially in Fortnite, with creative mode and a lot of fans of Fortnite starting to build levels, and obviously UE, you guys I think have really focused on kind of making it accessible, lowering the royalty rates for kind of upstart developers. Can you maybe talk a bit about sort of the your vision of kind of how easy it is to build something in Unreal? I mean, are we going to get to a level where it is sort of like a Photoshop where you can kind of just jump in and build a game, or what is that barrier to entry going to go down in the next generation?
Epic is working to address the whole range of content development scenarios, all the way from your AAA game developer or your feature film in Hollywood being produced using world-class photoreal assets, all the way down to indie game experiences and content creation for the 100 million people who want to build stuff but aren't professional modelers and haven't had training in that. And the continuum of experiences spans Fortnite Creative, which has been used by over 100 million people, all the way up to Unreal Engine 4 and the Unreal Editor, which is an insanely powerful piece of software that's actually pretty complicated to learn. But over time, these tools and technologies will be coming together in some exciting ways, and we're not ready to talk about all of it yet. But Epic is really thinking about and putting a lot of effort into addressing the entire continuum of content development and content deployment scenarios. We feel that the state of the world is a little bit broken right now. If you look at the app stores on smartphones, you have 250,000 games, each competing for the top 10 charts, where virtually all of the sales occur. And you have a small number of winners and a whole lot of losers in that way, and it's not a fair situation for game developers. And you have a lot of amazing games that just get lost because they haven't been discovered. More and more we want to enable content creators to reach the audiences within existing games. And this has been part of the industry since the days of Quake and Unreal Tournament, when user mods became possible, and we and id Software released our first tools so the community could start building their own stuff. And now it's reached a scale of hundreds of millions of users. If you look at what Fortnite is doing, and Minecraft and Roblox enabling user content creation, but I think right now you have two separate worlds, right? You have the professional tools of Unreal Engine and Unity, and then you have the tools for the masses in Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, and they're really not connected anymore. They're not connected at all. And the next step is to cross over and to enable all of the content tools to reach all of the customers and all of the ways that they play games. And this is something we're thinking a lot about, and we'll be doing a lot of work on in the coming years.
It's awesome to hear. We've talked a lot, obviously, about like graphics and lighting and things that are very powerful and visual that grab you. But I want to talk about the underlying architecture a little bit, and things especially like online services. And I know that's something that Epic has focused on, about kind of connecting people, even crossplay, but also finding ways to kind of bring communities together. And I guess some of that's tied to UE5, but also it's just a general platform approach. But can you maybe share a bit on kind of your vision on, the other aspects of Unreal and Epic and how that's going to sort of evolve over the next few years too?
Oh, sure. Today we're showing Unreal Engine 5 for the first time, but we're launching the Epic Online services to all developers in the world across 5 platforms right now. And you can download the Epic Online Services SDK and use it right away. What this is the set of all of the online features that we built for Fortnite, including cross-platform friends that span 7 platforms, enable players to connect together with all of their friends everywhere. Despite the different account systems and friend systems that exist on each platform, on the console platforms and on Steam. And we're opening it up to all developers for free. And the goal here is to help all developers work together to accomplish what we accomplished with Fortnite, and to build a cross-platform social ecosystem together with all of the other developers in the industry, right? Instead of players being siloed into the one platform they're playing on, we want them to be able to reach all of their friends everywhere, but also build up friends across multiple games. And that's the really interesting thing about the Epic account services that we're launching. If you choose to use Epic accounts in your game, then you can reach the entire Fortnite player base, which is over 350 million accounts worldwide. And more importantly, it's 2.2 billion social connections between players. When 2 players become online friends and start playing together, those friend connections now persist across games, from all of the different publishers who choose to use these services. And so, it's the most open set of services that have been launched to date, and it really helps to bridge the gap that's existed on all of the other platforms. And until recently, it was really only Epic, EA, Activision, the really big companies with a huge set of development resources that had the capability of building that sort of thing. But now this is open, and it's approved by all 3 of the console makers for use on their platforms, and it's ready for all game developers to adopt. And so we're really trying to help the industry get to a better place. And we think the core of the game industry are these 300 million hardcore gamers across high-end PC and console. But there are billions of gamers worldwide, and I think the next stage of the industry's growth is going to come from connecting these audiences, not with low-end casual games on one set of platforms and high-end games on another set of platforms, but getting all of the players to play together and enabling all developers to release their games on all platforms, as we did with Fortnite.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting idea that these gaming platforms almost become it's another social network now, right? And I know you guys have House Party that's been very successful over the past few months, especially. But it feels like now you talk those numbers with Epic Online Services, it starts to feel like this is a Twitter or a Snapchat or an Instagram, and sort of this way to kind of connect people. Is that part of your longer term vision? Is that people will use sort of these game services as kind of a gateway to connect with people, and games are a part of it, but also just the larger sort of social graph will be kind of the gateway to it will be through a game engine?
Well, what we're building here is the opposite of a walled garden, right? We're enabling all publishers to use all of their different account systems and connect using these services. And we're working with all of the different console makers and other platforms and services to help interconnect them. The most interesting thing about this, and if you start playing Fortnite on PlayStation and then you want to play the game on the iOS device, on iOS you can log in with your PlayStation account, and then you get all of your PlayStation progress transferred over. If you start playing on PC, then you create an Epic account. Then if you go to Xbox, then you can log in with your Epic account on your Xbox. And so this isn't a walled garden. Rather, it's an attempt to connect all of the different services, some of which have different degrees of openness. And I think that's really going to be freeing for the industry. It's going to mean that everybody can talk to everybody else, and there's no one company controlling the whole thing. Rather, it arises as a result of the cooperation between all of the different companies in the ecosystem who finally realize that they can grow better and build better businesses if, instead of trying to lock players into their platforms, they enable their players to connect with all of their friends across all platforms. Because we have a lot of devices in our lives, and everybody who has an Xbox or a PlayStation also has an iPhone or an Android device. And to really enable the next generation of industry growth, we've got to be able to connect all of these users with all of these friends and set aside kind of the old feuds that defined previous generations of the console business.
So with everything you're describing, I think of, a show like The Mandalorian, which, we all watched and loved, but all those assets are there. I mean, nothing prevents them now from building kind of an interactive experience, I guess, around that they could power with something like Unreal. And, maybe it's a game, but maybe it's just sort of this shared experience. And it feels like, the visual fidelity now that these next-gen consoles will bring. I mean, based on what you were saying, Kim and Nick, it's like, are things going to look just like movie visual effects? Like, what are the things that I guess real-time games can't do still that we get to see in some of these other shows?
I think we're getting much closer on this generation to get to the point where you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a virtual world and a real world. There's still, physical phenomenon, big, massive explosions, and waves crashing on a beach. I think they're still probably one generation off before they're perfect, but we're getting closer and closer. And one of the coolest things that we've seen with the advent of shows like The Mandalorian starting to use the engine is they're beginning to understand that a game engine isn't just about rendering pretty real-time pixels. They're understanding that game engines, especially Unreal, is built for building these very immersive simulated worlds. So we're seeing people say they've got a car chase in their TV show that they're trying to make, then they'll actually drive cars with steering wheels and joypads to race against each other and then film that after the fact. So it's starting to become very almost like very Matrix way in the way that they're using simulation for cinematic content creation. And I think that's just going to get more and more common. And as they start to rock the potential of what real-time interactive entertainment is about, I think you're going to see traditional storytellers making the move into video games, and I think and backwards and forwards. I think you're going to see this very, very fuzzy world where it's just entertainment. You're building an IP. It can be a game. It can be a TV show. It can be all of these things, and it's going to be a pretty exciting decade.
And I'm sure some people saw that, the showcase that you guys just showed, the demo, and everyone's like, I want to play that game. But we should clarify that's not a game, I don't think, right? It's just a tech demo?
It's a tech demo. Yes,
Okay.
yes. No, we feel it's the best way to present, especially something that was built for the Game Developer Conference, is to show something within the context of gameplay. So, and it also means, we wanted to improve some animation systems in the engine. So it was much better to actually have a world that you can walk through, play, jump, whatever. Keeps it real, or unreal in this case.
I was going to say, it's real gameplay. That's what we like to see, is that people can actually play through that. And again, it just blows me away when you see that final sequence at the flight, and that's the kind of thing that I think we've all been waiting for, is to see that glimpse of where games are going next. So it's really exciting to see how you guys keep pushing the technology to the next level with UE5. And I know it's going to be next year, you say. So we'll see some next gen games this holiday shipping on brand UE 4.25, I think, right? And then next year is when we'll see UE5. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We're planning on having a preview of UE5 available early next year, and then shipping the full 5.0 later in the year.
Yeah, and I imagine characters will also improve. I know you guys have done a lot of work there with sort of character technology. We already talked about with Nick, the idea of streaming more into the environment. No load times, as Tim mentioned. I mean, these are other things that I guess are going to sort of impact the game experience. But are there other dimensions that you think the next generation will sort of evolve to with UE5? I mean, I think the character stuff feels like, to me, another area where we're not quite the same as movies yet in terms of character technology, but I'm sure you guys are pushing on that too.
I'm very confident. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
This is just the tip of the iceberg here. We've shown digital humans technology in the past, but Epic and the 3Lateral team that recently joined us are going to be pushing that to entirely new levels, not just in graphics fidelity, but also in productivity for content creators, so that a developer without a huge budget can build digital humans that are world class. We have a lot of investments going on that you'll hear about over the coming months and over the next year. Also at the core of this, this isn't a big open world demo, but open world technology and enabling worlds without bounds is the key initiative that's uniting all of this. Virtualized geometry is one part of it. Global illumination with Lumen is another part of it. But ultimately, this comes together to empower huge streaming seamless environments, and that creates an entirely new direction for games to go. And remember, this is not just a graphics engine, right? It's a full simulation engine. It aims to power every aspect of simulating a realistic environment, including very detailed physics, and vehicles, and collision, and destruction, and everything else. I think you'll see a qualitatively different set of games built for the new generation than what we have here. And it's going to be very exciting because we don't yet know exactly what they're going to be.
And how does you guys mentioned Fortnite moving to UE5 next year? Like, I mean, how is this going to impact Fortnite? Do you think in terms of like the game with UE5? Sure, you don't want to spoil much, but it's like just technically sort of like, is that going to enable the game to evolve too?
Well, it puts a vast amount of additional new power in the hands of all of the creators who build Fortnite, both within Epic and the 100 million or so outside of Epic. It's going to be very interesting to see where this enables the game to go in the future. I think what we have now is a very, very small fraction of what the game will be in the future, and it's going to be very exciting to see the Fortnite team evolve it and have all of this new power in their hands.
When I see it as, it's a game, but it also feels like a platform in a way that it's enabling, these other, there's battle royale game, but there's creative, and obviously we've started to see, other experiences with music artists and whatnot around it. So it feels like it is this, this beachhead to sort of a bunch of other content. Is that how you view it? As sort of this, sort of this? I mean, people have used the term, sort of metaverse, but is that sort of the longer term vision? Is that Fortnite can sort of grow to wherever creators want to take it?
Yeah, they define a platform as an ecosystem in which most of the content is not created by the company that operates it, right? And I think if you look at Fortnite today, it's not that, but anything's possible in the future. I think that's a very interesting direction for the whole game business. Every game developer is thinking about this problem of how to not limit their experience by the 10 or 100 or 1,000 people on their development team, but how to uncap the entire world's creativity to enable an entirely new generation of game experiences to be developed in an entirely new way.
Yeah, well, I think UE5 obviously shows the high end of the aspiration for everyone to, what they'll eventually be able to maybe make. And yeah, that demo is absolutely stunning. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, like, that demo, how long did it take you guys to build? How many people worked on it? Can you give us a sense of, like, how that came to life?
Well, we started thinking about it straight after GDC was when we started thinking about it. We knew Brian's Nanite technology was beginning to come online. And but the bulk of the work, I would say the bulk of the work started from sort of September through to March. And I think the team, it probably peaked over this, but I think it was about 24 people that worked on the project overall. And with a bit of help from our friends at Quixel, if it hadn't been for the Quixel Megascan library, we couldn't be able to populate that world.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everyone looks at that and says, I want to play that game. And I know we're not necessarily going to get it, but it hopefully will inspire a lot of creators around the world about what will be possible, with UE5 and also the next generation systems. So, I feel real excited now about what we're going to get to see for the rest of the year for all these next gen games and, of course, into the future. Thanks, as always, for joining me, guys. It's great to see the first look at UE5 and hear about where Epic's going. And the future looks quite bright. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Check.